Welcome to the broadcast. My name is John Mayfield, the real estate tech guy, and thanks for joining us. We're going to do a webinar on liens, easements, and some other important information you very well could see on the National Real Estate Exam. Now, first and foremost, please be sure and check out our YouTube channel. If you are watching right now on YouTube, subscribe and hit the bell. You'll be notified each and every time we go live on YouTube. We've got some great content on our YouTube channel. We are organizing it into playlists. We're doing some additional behind the scenes work that we hope to have wrapped up very shortly. And so be sure and subscribe. And I also want you to go over to our Instagram channel. We're giving away a brand new iPad. Yes, a brand new iPad. It's going to be given away on October the 5th. That's coming up, October 5th. We're going to do the drawing live. And so the way you can enter into that is go over to Instagram, like our Instagram page, be sure and like our YouTube page, and then click on our bio on Instagram. You can also find this on our Global Real Estate School Facebook page, but click on the link. It will take you over to our Linktree site on our Global Real Estate School webpage, and just follow the entry form there, and you could win a brand new iPad. So you do not have to be a student. We would love to have you as a student, but share our content, tell others about it, and you could very well have your opportunity to win a brand new iPad. So excited to do that for you as well. Well, let's get right in to our today's broadcast, where we're going to actually talk about the what you could very well see on the examination. And this is actually from the Missouri Candidate Handbook. We're going to be covering section C right here. I'm going to kind of put my finger on C there, and it says encumbrances and effects on property ownership. So we're going to talk about liens, and we're going to actually not only talk about liens, but we're going to talk about several of these other items that you very well could see on the real estate examination. So let's kind of go through some of this information here. I've just had this pulled up for you, and I'd like for you to take a look at some of the information that I have. So we're going to make sure that we are into the highlight mode. And one of the things that I want you to remember, as I accidentally highlighted the wrong area, but one of the things that I always like to remind my students is that all liens are encumbrances, but not all encumbrances are liens. What do we mean by that? What do we mean by that? Well, all liens are encumbrances, but not all encumbrances are liens. And encumbrance is anything that affects the title to the real estate. So it could be good or bad. If you owned 40 acres that was landlocked and someone gave you an easement, that would be considered a form of an encumbrance. See, there's something there that can affect the title to the real estate. Doesn't mean that it's necessarily bad. You may have other types of encumbrances that are associated with the real estate, and they're not always bad. So think about that phrase again. Let's go back and take a look at that. All liens are encumbrances, but not all encumbrances are liens. So we're going to talk about liens, and a lien is, yes, an encumbrance. And so liens, as you can see here, can actually be classified into two sections. We have what are called voluntary liens right here. Naturally, those are what? Taken out voluntarily by the person who owns the real estate. And we also have what are called involuntary liens. Those are created by law against the person. Well, think about the fact that if you owed back taxes, that would probably be an involuntary lien, right? The government would file a tax lien against you because of non-payment of your taxes. However, if you took out a mortgage loan on a property and you go to the bank and you sign the papers, that's an example of a voluntary lien. So keep that in mind. Liens can either be voluntary or involuntary. Now, on the real estate exam, they like to throw these types of questions, or this type of information, I should say, they like to include it into the questions that are what we call, where they want you to apply the information. A lot of this is not going to be just, hey, what's this? And you give the answer. They're going to give you a scenario where someone has done something and throughout all of that information of the problem, you're going to have to figure out, well, gee, they took out a mortgage loan. That's probably a voluntary lien. See how that could how they could do that? So these are going to be the application questions, little bit harder pitches. The key is what? You have to read the questions 2 or 3 times. Just take your time, read the questions, and you'll do just fine. Well, let's go back on over to our display, and I am going to actually move this up a little bit. So hopefully, let me see here if we can. I think I might have to still kind of learning some of the key features of my display board, but so I want to kind of stop here again, and I just want to point out, we've already mentioned this just a second ago, but so you will just be on the same page, a tax lien is a good example of an involuntary lien, okay? And it's also what we call a statutory lien. A voluntary lien might be an example of what? A home loan. Again, it's a good example of a voluntary lien, so don't forget that. Now, let's go on up here, or go take a look at what we call an equitable lien. And again, they're going to put these into question format. Notice an equitable lien arises out of what the court deems fair in penalty assessed against the owner. For instance, if a person has an automobile accident and they're driving a car and it's their fault and they create a bad injury, we hate to even talk about that, but things happen sometimes where it's our actions and our fault, and we may be sued through the court, and the court might assess a penalty against us, a judgment, and through that judgment we have what is called an involuntary equitable lien. See that right there? Now, notice that liens can further be classified as either a general lien or specific liens. Now, this really, don't make this too complicated, because what you need to understand is that general liens affect all, again, I'm going to say that one more time, all of the debtor's property. It's like a judgment. A general lien could affect personal property, real property, all of the debtor's property. So in your notes, I would just write general liens, similar to a judgment, is when the court literally can issue a judgment against a person, and the person who's awarded that judgment could go after both real and personal property. Specific liens, on the other hand, only attach to a specific item. You get a car loan. If you do not make the payments on the car the bank can do what? They can repossess the car, okay? Now, you might think, well, it's over with. I didn't pay my car payments. The bank repossessed my car. They can have the car back. Now, the bank is going to try to sell that automobile, and let's just say they sell it for $1,000 less than the amount you owed them. Are you with me? A person has a car. The bank repossesses the car. That's a specific lien. That's the only thing they can come after. They could go to court and say, Your Honor, we were only able to sell the car for this much money. John Mayfield still owes us $1,000. Will you give us a judgment against John Mayfield? And the court could say yes. They could also say no, but probably they would say yes and give the bank a judgment for $1,000 against me. Notice how I had a specific lien for my car, but because the bank could not sell it for enough money, they actually appealed to the court and asked for a judgment. And a judgment now is a general lien, which attaches as well, right? Attaches to personal and real property that I own. It actually means they can come after anything. My paycheck through a garnishment. See how that works? So again, you're going to have questions, and your job is to really look at the question, read the question, and try to figure out, hey, is this an example of a general lien, or would this be a specific lien? And more importantly, is this something that was done involuntarily, or did this person do this voluntarily? And would it be an equitable part that's included with that as well? A lot of stuff that you have to know regarding liens, and you will see some exam questions regarding liens. So just make sure that you understand this information very well. Now, let's talk about mechanic liens. First of all, mechanic liens are going to be different state by state. So you're not going to have, I don't think you'll see specific questions regarding state law and mechanic liens. You could, and when we are prompted to teach that in the states we are approved in, we definitely do that. I want you to know that. But a couple of things you need to know about mechanic liens, and the questions I've seen on the exam, the times I've been able to take it, is that first of all, a mechanic's lien can only be filed on the property where the work was performed. Now let's talk about an exam question that you probably will see. Because again, remember, these are more application questions I tend to see from this type of material. So they give you a scenario. So-and-so was a plumber, they did some work at a property, did not get paid, the person sold that property, and they wanted to go over and file the mechanic's lien at the new property or a different property that the owner owed. Is this going to be okay? And it's a great big long problem with lots of long answers. And you immediately say, I watched John Mayfield from Global Real Estate School's YouTube video, and John specifically told me and warned me about this type of application question over liens. And John said, you can only file the mechanic's lien on the property where the work or the services were performed. Period. You need to know that. If you remember that, you're in good shape. You're going to get that question right. So you have to file the mechanic's lien on the property where the work or the services were performed. Now, I say services because this is another part, and they like to throw these into the questions as well. A mechanic's lien can be for labor that was performed at that property. It could also be for goods or services that were installed, like an air conditioning unit at that property, and any of the workers, contractor, or subcontractors for that property. You got that? If I'm a contractor and I hire subcontractors and they don't get paid from me, the subcontractors could file mechanic liens on that property only, that property. And the last thing I want to mention here is that mechanic liens need to be done within a certain time frame. Now, I do want to point out here that, and naturally our course is approved in several states. In Missouri and many of the other states that I teach in, commercial, and I want to circle that, commercial brokers have the right to file liens for commissions due. Again, the key word there is commercial. Now, why? You're probably saying, well, why commercial, John, and not residential? And again, each state's a little bit different, so I'm just kind of going over this in a nutshell. Commercial is a whole different, I wanted to say beast or animal, but I really don't like those words, but I said it, so you kind of understand. Commercial's a different, it's a whole different world, okay? And you're dealing with sometimes long-term leases, and you're supposed to get paid every year, or, commissions are negotiable, however you do that. And so since you're dealing with larger numbers and maybe commissions that won't be due for another year or 2 years, if you don't get paid your commission at that time, it's just only natural that commercial brokers should have the right to file mechanic liens for commissions due. But again, we'll talk about that in each state. Just wanted to point that out. Now, I want to go back to mechanic liens in general and just tell you a story about a couple that I knew who were building a new home through a builder. I remember driving over there and so with my friend, and this builder had all these homes going up, and I remember thinking, I was a younger guy at that time, and I remember thinking, man, that builder, he's got the world by the tail. He had a brand new big old 4-wheel drive truck, and he had all these workers and homes going up, and I thought, man, he's raking in the money. Look at him. Well, lo and behold, he was in debt pretty bad. And he wasn't paying all of his suppliers. He wasn't paying a lot of the workers or the subcontractors. And word got out he was in trouble, and people started filing mechanic liens in that subdivision who had performed work for this builder on specific properties, and or who had provided materials for those homes. Well, luckily, my friends had mechanic lien waivers is what you need to get. And they had lien waivers from the subcontractors and the builder. And what was really good for the folks I knew is that they were going through the bank who was going through a title company, and so they would not give him any kind of a draw. When he would come in to get requested to get paid, the title company would not give him his money until he went out and had the subcontractors provide him with mechanics lien waivers, as well as the building supply company, okay? However, there were people in that subdivision, because it was a lot of senior adults, who were paying cash to the builder, and they were not getting lien waivers. And the builder then started getting a lot of mechanic liens filed against these houses. Now, the owners of those homes who were giving him cash and not getting lien waivers now had liens against their real estate. And literally, some of those people had 75 at that time, which was a lot of money in my area, $75,000 to $100,000 and more in liens against their property. And so you're probably thinking, well, What's that do, John? Well, it means those people had paid cash for their homes, and they had given him cash to build their new home, and their home was supposed to be free and clear of any liens. But because they gave him cash, he did not give them lien waivers. He did not pay the contractors or the suppliers. They in turn filed liens against the property, their properties, and now what they thought should have been a new home, free and clear they were moving into, was a nightmare, and they owed people money, which many of them were able to settle for 25 or 30 cents on the dollar, but still they had to pay extra money to get all of that wrapped up. Do you see how lien waivers are very important? Now again, I want you to remember, most states require lien waivers to be filed within a certain time period. Don't forget that. In Missouri, for example, you have to file it within 6 months. Number two, lien waivers can be filed by anyone who's performed work or supplied goods to the product or goods to the property. The plumbing fixtures, the wood or lumber, the shingles on the home, the windows, I think, doors, carpeting, appliances. If anything was delivered to that house and it was put on credit and that bill wasn't paid, that person who supplied the goods could file a lien on that property. Don't forget, it has to be on that property. And also, any workers or subcontractors or anyone who provided service for that property can file a mechanic's lien. So you got to get lien waivers. You got to read those questions carefully. And you have to remember that those liens can only be placed on the property where the goods, services, work was performed, and those lien waivers need to be filed within a specific time frame, okay? So I think you're going to do great on liens. So we're going to go on down here. This is important that we understand. I'm going to highlight this. It is important to remember that liens run with the land. In other words, if a person has a lien on their real estate and they sell it to another party, the lien will remain against the real estate if it is not paid off. So those liens run with the land. A couple of legal definitions that you could see on the exam. This word called attachment. It is a legal process to retain and secure the debtor's property by the court in a lawsuit. That's called an attachment. And it can include both real and personal property. And this word right here, you could see, les pendens, it's a recorded document that basically says there's a lawsuit pending. So if I wanted to file a lawsuit against someone and I knew they had lots of money and I was worried about them moving money around, I might file what is called a les pendens against that person. Might remember back a number of years ago, the Goldman family filed a les pendens against O.J. Simpson because they didn't want him getting rid of all of his assets or hiding them into different places. And so when the court issues a les pendens, if your attorney files that against the other party, it basically just notifies the whole world, and we call that what? I think someone out there just said constructive notice, John. That's right. Recording that at the courthouse is constructive notice. That's a question. I know you'll probably see that on the test, but that gives constructive notice to the whole world, this les pendens, that there's a lawsuit pending, and just, we want to make sure that those assets do not get moved. And then writ of execution, that is a final order by the court to have the sheriff seize the debtor's property and sell, satisfying the the debt that is owed. Oh gosh, I've owned a lot of rental property through my life, and I could tell you lots of stories. And I remember one story where a couple didn't pay me their rent, and tried to ask them to leave nicely, and received a letter from the legal aid telling me to stay off the property and not to go back and harass them. And I'm like, what? I'm just trying to collect my rent. And then I noticed they bought a new car, and it was around the 4th of July, and I remember driving by, and they had this wild fireworks display going on in the front yard, and I'm like, how can they buy a new car, have this kind of fireworks display, and never pay me my rent? It's like, so I stopped to ask them again about the rent, and they called the police after I left. They didn't have the money. They called the police and filed a report that I was in a big fist fight with them. And of course, this is on Main Street, this house, and trust me, I'm not a fighter. I've always been one of the type of people who I try to sell my way out of getting into a fight. So anyway, so finally, after about 2 or 3 weeks of realizing I was not going to get paid, and they were a month or two behind at this point, so like I'm really losing money, I hired an attorney. We went through that whole long process, finally got them out, and the day the sheriff could go over and set their stuff on the front street, they were gone that morning. I mean, they knew the system frontwards and backwards. That's when I realized I do not want any more rental property. It's a pain in the neck. So anyway, go to court. I get a judgment. I knew where they were living, and I had a judgment from the court, and I asked my attorney, I said, well, how do we get all this money back I'm out and have spent towards you? And he goes, well, we'd have to file this writ of execution and have the sheriff go over and get the property and seize the property and sell it. And I'm like, is that worth doing that? So I'm telling you that story to say writ of execution does allow, it's that final court order for the sheriff to seize their property and sell it. But you know what? Depending on the amount, it might be more of a headache than it's worth. So that's going to be all. We're going to talk about Chapter 9 in the next section, and that's why it's so important that you subscribe to our YouTube channel. You'll be notified. You'll be able to go and watch these videos again. But search for us over there, Global Real Estate School. Do not forget, we're giving away an iPad. If you're watching this before October the 5th, 2021, but check out our website, often globalrealestateschool.com, because we're going to be giving away lots of things throughout our course. We have a great school. We get comments and great feedback all the time. I want you to trust me. I wouldn't tell you that if I didn't receive some really nice emails. I received several this week, people who said they passed on the first attempt. I was on a speaking tour for 3 days, going around the state of Missouri doing some continuing education courses, and met many of my former students who said, hey John, I loved your school. I passed on the first time, and they wanted to come and meet me in person. And so check us out, globalrealestateschool.com. We have a course called My Real Estate Exam Coach that I think you will love. It will help you pass the state. It works in all 50 states because it's national content only. California, Alaska, wherever. You can download or go to our website, check out My Real Estate Exam Coach. Also, I have a brand new coaching program called 5 Minutes to Jumpstarting Your Real Estate Career. Check that out. I'm telling you what, I teach you about online marketing. I teach you about budgeting, business planning. We have real estate letters. It's a great program, and I hope you will check that out. Well, as always, I want to say thank you for watching the broadcast. My name's John Mayfield, the Real Estate Tech Guy. Appreciate a thumbs up. Appreciate you liking our video. I want you to go out and have a great day, and thanks so much.